4,300 years ago, people built one of prehistoric China's largest stone cities. Beneath its gates, archaeologists later found dozens of human skulls. Now, DNA from the dead is revealing who built this city, how its elite families were organized, and who may have been chosen to die for them. But DNA can only take us so far. In the next 8 minutes, we'll see exactly how far and where the evidence still stops. Northern Shaanxi, on the edge of the lowest plateau, around 2,300 BCE, before China had emperors, and before it had writing systems we can fully read, someone built a city here covering roughly 4 square kilometers. Massive stone walls, an inner city and an outer city, dedicated zones for elite residences, and a stepped, palace-like platform rising above everything else. This is Shimao. It wasn't simply a small village. Its walls, monumental structures, and burial differences point to a highly organized and deeply stratified society. A society capable of mobilizing enormous amounts of labor. A city this size doesn't organize itself. So the question becomes, who was in charge? And how was power passed from one generation to the next? Near Shimao's east gate, archaeologists uncovered something unsettling. Dozens of human skulls, buried in and around the entrance to the city. This wasn't simply an ordinary cemetery. Their placement and the ritual context strongly suggest that these people were deliberately sacrificed. But the bones alone could not answer one of the most important questions. Who were these people? Captives? Outsiders? Or people who had once lived within the same communities as those who sacrificed them? Archaeology could reveal how they were buried, and sometimes how they died. But it couldn't easily show how they were related to the people living elsewhere in Shimao. Something inside the bones could. A major ancient DNA study generated genome-wide data from 169 ancient individuals across Shimao and other sites in Shaanxi and Shanxi. From this dataset, researchers were able to do something remarkable. They reconstructed actual family trees inside Shimao communities. Some stretched across as many as 4 generations. People buried in different graves, sometimes with no obvious archaeological evidence connecting them, suddenly appeared as members of the same biological family. Grave A, Grave B, Grave C, different tombs, different burial contexts, but DNA could draw the lines between them. Grandfather, father, son, the dead stopped being isolated skeletons. They became families again. And those family trees revealed something about how power may have worked inside the city. Across multiple Shimao communities, researchers found a strong pattern. Important family lines were organized through fathers. Male descendants repeatedly appeared within high-status burial networks, suggesting that wealth and social position could pass through paternal lines. The DNA also suggests that some female partners came from outside those local family lines. That may point to a system in which women move between communities after marriage. But the researchers caution that the evidence is still incomplete. One high-status burial makes the contrast especially clear. At the Zhaishan site, archaeologists excavated a tomb cataloged as 2020 M4. Inside were a tomb owner and another person buried alongside them as part of the ritual. The tomb owner belonged to one of the male line pedigrees reconstructed through DNA. The sacrificed individual did not. To be clear about what this does, and doesn't, show, this isn't proof of a single royal dynasty, and it isn't a king's name written in DNA. What it shows is narrower, but still significant. In at least parts of Shimao society, ancestry through the male line appears to have been closely connected to status and inheritance. But the same DNA revealed something much darker. The people buried as elites, and the people sacrificed around them, usually did not belong to the same close family lines. Here's the reversal that changes the whole story. Among the sampled sacrificed individuals from the East Gate, almost all were male. But at some high-status burial areas, including Huangchengtai and Hanjiagadan, most of the sampled sacrificial victims were female. Different locations, different ritual contexts, and possibly very different rules about who was chosen. The researchers are careful here, and we should be too. The sample sizes are still limited. The study describes this as a possible sex-specific pattern, not a confirmed rule for all sacrifice at Shimao. We still don't know why the gate appears to show one pattern, while elite tombs show another. But DNA revealed another separation. In most cases, the people sacrificed beside elite tomb owners were not their close relatives. Some of the sacrificed women, however, were related to each other, just not closely related to the elites they accompanied. That raises an even darker possibility. Perhaps sacrifice wasn't always about choosing isolated individuals. In some cases, particular families or communities may have been selected for that role, not because they belong to the elite family, but because they belong to some other group. What the DNA cannot tell us is who these people were before they died. Captives? Outsiders? Members of lower status communities? Or people born inside Shimao who were simply considered expendable? The DNA can show us the boundary. It cannot tell us why that boundary existed. One more question the DNA helps answer. Were Shimao's builders sudden outsiders? Conquerors who swept into the region and imposed this new social order on someone else's land? The genetics suggest otherwise. Most of Shimao's population appears to have descended largely from local communities already living in the region long before the city reached its height. Shimao was not simply a foreign population arriving overnight, but it wasn't isolated either. The genomes also show limited genetic influence connected to populations farther north, including groups related to ancient populations from what is now Inner Mongolia. And they reveal broader connections with populations farther south. Shimao was deeply rooted in its local region, but it also existed inside a much wider world of movement and interaction. So here's where we actually stand. DNA can tell us who was related to whom. It can show us that power, in at least part of this society, appears to have passed through paternal family lines. It can show us that the people sacrificed at the gate and the people sacrificed in elite tombs may not have been chosen in the same way. And it can reveal that sacrificed people were usually not close relatives of the elites they died beside. What it cannot tell us is why. Why one family inherited status and wealth, while someone from another family ended up buried beside them as part of a ritual. Why some people lived inside the hierarchy, while others became part of the price that hierarchy demanded. For 4,300 years, Shimao's walls showed us the power of this city. Now, its DNA is beginning to show us the people behind that power. And the more we learn about who lived there, the harder it becomes to look away from the people who were chosen to die there.